everyone, and welcome to the Knighted Ones podcast, episode number 28. As a reminder, we're the only podcast that features a UCF National Champion, a former UCF radio host, an infamous rapper, an IG star, and a former ESPN analyst, all shooting the breeze, talking UCF sports. And this week, we got some highs and we got some lows. Basketball had a big win against Oklahoma State that we'll talk about. And a loss that was extremely frustrating to Iowa State. Baseball's doing some great things. We'll talk about them. And we've got some good combine news to talk about for football. So exciting week this week. We've got hopefully more highs than lows. And of course, the cows went down. And any time that we can have some sirloin steak on the Cows' behalf, we're going to take that every day of the week. So without further ado, let's go ahead and welcome the crew to the show. Nobra is back.
Hey, what's going on?
Man, bro, we let you off and you forget your intro every time. It's like, hey now.
I was kind of forgetting that was going to happen.
Yeah, you clearly forgot. But welcome back, and welcome back to that hair. Give us a good hair shake. There it is. All right. Next to the stage, we're going to go ahead and bring in Alan Levin. Alan, welcome back.
What's going on?
Hey.
Am I close enough to the screen?
Yes, you are. We've got appropriate lighting off your forehead, so we're good to go there. Next, we've got Ben Stout coming to the table. Ben Stout, our ESPN analyst, radio show host, podcast host, former basketball player. The accolades just go on. And he got to celebrate with the Hoops team. So excited to hear some stories about that a little bit later in the show. Welcome back, Ben.
What's up?
Word. All right. And next we have our national champion. There it is. Our national champion, Tre Neal. Welcome back. We missed you last week, buddy.
What's up, gentlemen? Yeah, I miss you guys too, man. Let's talk some ball. Every kind of ball is going on right now. Football, basketball, baseball.
Whoa. Be careful with that. This is not even.
No, that was clean. That was clean.
It was just dirty. It was close. Dirty mind. That's all.
Yeah, exactly. I'm excited to be back, man.
Just assume our minds are always in the gutter. And last but not least, but not in the gutter, but always last, Josh Lazar.
Lottie-dottie, we likes to potty. We don't cause trouble. We don't bother nobody. We're just some nights that's on the mic. And when we rock upon the mic, we rock the mic.
All right.
Close. And everyone in their car is going to say right. Thank you.
I said right. I fixed it.
It's good. It's good.
I remember most of the lyrics. I stopped when there was that questionable word there, so I wasn't sure how you were going to handle that, so I kind of backed off.
That's a different version than the Slick Rick version, my friend. Slick Rick version is just some men are on the mic.
Well, nobody knows. So we didn't know, and I wasn't going to chance it. So I took the back seat to that one.
We don't have a drop button live. We're doing it live.
We're doing it live.
All we have is the B button.
We're doing it live, baby.
We're doing it live. Yeah. Live in air quotes. All right. Thank you so much, everybody. It's glad to have a full house. I appreciate everybody being here this week. Lots of exciting stuff to talk about. Josh, you're not wearing a collar, are you?
I am.
Are you? Okay.
Yeah, it's just black on black. Everything.
I'm still working on my small screen this week because I'm not back home and forgot my monitor.
You just have to go like this. If you use your fingers and you that should expand your screen, I think.
Yeah. Well, we're not doing that. So because I have to have the notes and everything else up. But welcome back to the show, everyone. Let's get started. Do we have some text talk this week?
I do.
All right. What's your Tre always picks the funny ones. Tre, what you got?
Mine was from Rob when it was Saturday Prime. We were talking combine basketball, and he was like, "Who else is watching the combine and think I'm going outside to run the 40?" And then Josh was like, "I think I could do it in 45 seconds. I can run a 45."
Hey, I said 4.5
seconds.
I think it was
Yeah, I was not thinking about
Ooh.
running the 40 at all. I can tell you that right now. I wasn't thinking about running the 20 or the 5 foot. So that was all Rob. I think he was hopped up on his testosterone shots. I
Yeah,
don't know.
he had to be something because he was juiced.
Yeah, if you're in Orlando, folks, and you need some help either with weight loss or, other problems, Rob's your guy. Rob Powers, Dr. Rob Powers. Make sure you check him out for his.
He needs to pay for the podcast thing now. That's what we
No,
get.
he's already paid for the podcast. He
It's
showed
all
up
good.
for the
It's
first couple shows, and then
It's
he
fine.
made his exit.
And then, why don't we all do this? Why don't we all record on a phone a 40 and see that
Nope.
I'm the slowest? Come on, we can do
Oh,
it.
I got no desire to run 40 yards right now. I got to tell you.
Oh my gosh, are we gonna have a track meet? Is that what's gonna happen? Because Tre's gonna dust us all.
Well,
Tre's
I mean,
still in shape.
Trey,
I might-
you finally found your group,
Papa
Trey.
Hammy.
You
I
finally
might
found your group. You're
I
faster
might
than all
Papa
of
Hammy
us.
doing that, man. I might Papa Hammy doing that.
All right. Well, anybody else got a text talk for this week?
Yeah,
I got one.
oh yeah,
Go ahead,
Alan's
Josh.
up.
Alan's up. Okay, Alan, what you got?
I
Last.
got Ryu Rogers said, I wanted sad cows, and we delivered sirloin Pittsburgh style. Talking about the UCF Cows baseball game.
Horns down. Screw you,
Hey.
Texas. It's not for you, but still, screw you, Texas. I can do horns down if I want to. So
We're
there you
rated E for everyone.
go. Exactly. All right. Josh, you had one?
Yeah, I was doing more of the hoop stuff, although there was a lot of good cow commentary too. That was nice to see a good shutout at the end of there. On the Oklahoma State game, I think it was a lot of caps in this. See what happens when you drive the ball, lots of exclamation points. And that is the theme for the most part of the season. If we chuck up a bunch of threes, we usually don't do well. When we get a good mix of inside out play, like we did a lot in that game, that would be good. And on the Iowa State game, I don't know if I 100%. What?
Hold on. I got to bring Nobra back in because he
Okay.
had a comment about that. He was like, I was checking out the stats. Nobra, what did you say earlier?
I was looking at the stats because we talk about it every week. So now I'm into looking at the game. Since I can't watch them, I'll look at the stats during and after. And I was looking at our shot percentage, our 3-point shot percentage. I was like, 1 for 19. Stop shooting. What is that?
Yeah, exactly. Stop.
Why?
Stop.
Well,
12.
in Iowa State, so to me, I think in Iowa State, and Ben probably has a lot better of in depth, and we'll get to this. But in Iowa State, specifically on that, they're a very good defense. Part of my text talk is that Iowa State defensively is basically us with more money and a better offense. And we both can lock down people pretty well. There's only a couple.
It's not a better offense. We lock them down too. Their offense isn't that great. It's their defense and turnovers. That's where they are the exact same identity as what we are. It's defensive play and points off of turnovers, which is why we should have driven the paint. But we'll get into that when we talk about Iowa State.
Yeah, so that was what I was going to say. Yeah, I still think we have some room to go, but I still think there's some good pieces of what we have, and maybe it'll be better in the next 3 games. We'll see.
All right, Ben, did you have one
or 2?
All of my text talks would just be angry ones about Iowa State game officiating in particular.
Oh, you had a good one about officiating.
I'll say one of my texts, and just to say it to the audience, one of my texts after the game was, "This game was stolen from us, and nobody can tell me differently." And that's and I'll just
and
leave
this
it at that.
is from the guy who defended
State
the refs all year long, so you know it was bad if Ben said that at the end of the game. So. All right, let's start.
It's the first time I've really been adamant about after a loss is the refs. But anyways, yeah.
All right, so let's start with something positive. Josh, go ahead and pop your collar for this segment. That's what I like to see. UCF beats Oklahoma State 77-71. Now, that's a game we were expecting to win, but we were down, to begin with. So great all-around team effort on offense. We had 4 Knights in double digits in this game. We had a 12-point deficit in the half and in the first half, and then 4 points by like halftime. So we outscored OSU 39-29 in the second half, and it was actually worse than that. And they started coming back a little bit towards the end. Our defense just locked them down. Darius Johnson had a great game. He had 17 points. He's had a slew of really good games. But can't say so much for Iowa State. I mean, we'll talk about Iowa State later. You could see how much this is getting under everybody's skin, right? But it put us, the best thing about this game to me, right, was that it put us in the position, I think, in a solid position for at least the NIT. And Kansas State is behind us and the closest one to us. And they've got, I believe, Iowa State at home and Kansas away to round out the season. And obviously we've got Houston, which is a tall task, and we've got TCU. So right now, I feel like we're well positioned to be able to solidify that. But one additional regular season game would definitely, I feel like, solidify our NIT hopes. But this put us in a good position. It was really a must win for us if we had postseason aspirations, and the team pulled through and they did it in convincing fashion. So guys, what did you have on this game?
Yeah, I just thought overall it was a solid performance. It was one of those times where in the first half we actually got up to an okay start on the road, but then it kind of like the 10-minute mark, it wasn't looking that great. Oklahoma State went on a run, but what I liked about this performance on the road, regardless of who the opponent is, we kind of handled their runs and then really kind of took it to them in multiple key moments of the game. I would say about 5 minutes left in the first half. We were down, as you mentioned, we were down by 12, and that's where we just really accelerated and made it a very close game at the half. And then coming out of the locker room, same thing. We just we took the lead, handled a little bit of pushback from them, and then about a 10-minute stretch from 15-minute mark to the 5-minute mark of the second half is where we just kind of closed the door on them. And so that was really good to see, especially on the road. And honestly, and I think I might have said this in the text talk, in the first half, Oklahoma State, while they had the lead for most of it, it seems like the shots that they were making were just really tough shots. Like we were forcing them to do tough shots, and they were just making them, and that happens, right? But what I like to see is, and you saw a little bit of this, especially in the first half against Iowa State, but even in the second half, whenever we turned the ball over, we got back on defense so well that we either forced a turnover right away and got the ball back, or were able to at least alter their shot or even slow them down so they didn't get transition points. They didn't get a whole lot of points off turnovers. And seeing that type of game in the middle of the week at Oklahoma State, finally getting a conference road win, which was just huge. Well, I know we got one win earlier in the season, but we haven't had that was only our second road win all year, a true road win. So getting another one there was big at this point in time, and I think it set us up well for what we saw in a long stretches on Saturday. And I know I don't want to jump ahead to that too quickly.
We just keep doing it. I mean, I think it's just such a big disappointment that we're all like, we want to get all our aggression out, which is sad because, this game was a good game. I mean, we shot 42%. We shot 37.5% from 3 points, 3-point land, which is better than what we have been. Free throws, we shot 27 of 36 for 75%. So relatively good free throw outing, better than what we've had. 40 rebounds to 27.
Right.
That's the game right there.
We definitely muscled up on him. And I'll say, just you mentioned the 3-point percentage being 37.5%. I thought during that stretch, especially in the first half, CJ Walker hit 2 threes in a row, which he had been very much struggling from the 3-point line. And I think he's actually been, because he struggled so much when he came onto this team, like he actually has been smarter with his shot selection, I think, while he's still not making them when he does take the 3-pointers. Like, I feel like the last 10 games he's been relatively smart with his shot selection, but the 2 that he hit were huge in that moment. It was really just kind of showing his team and ignited his team at the right moment. And they were big time threes, and I was happy that he knocked them down. So
he was the only one that hit a 3 at Iowa State. So
there you go. Yeah.
you can't. And it was
you're the one that said you don't want to jump ahead too early, but
no, but I mean, my point is and where I was going with that, you mentioned CJ's 3-point shooting, it was something at the beginning of the season when he was shooting. I think he's doing it to get himself ready for the NBA, to be frank, because his position, he's been more aggressive in the paint, in layups and stuff like that, and offensively, right? I think that's what you're seeing. But I've seen his form change and get better, and when he's shooting in motion. It's not something where he's taking awkward shots, he's squaring up his feet, he's taking a good shot. It's more fluid than what it's been, and you're seeing the results lately in the game. So I think CJ, it was kind of like when Scylla takes threes, that still drives me nuts. But CJ, he's been hitting them more and more lately. And when you got a team that shoots 30%, or 30, whatever it is, 33, 34% for the season, and goes 1 for 19, and he's the only one that makes a shot, I'm not mad at him, as long as we don't have as long as it's not a tight game and it's early and it's not like we've taken 19 freaking shots and made one of them. So,
and I think that progression that you're seeing there, Roger, which I agree with you, I'm seeing the same thing, is just a credit to the obvious work that he's been putting in the gym, and a credit to his teammates on finding him in the right spots as well. It's not like they're step back threes or creating those threes of himself. Like he's being in the right position on the court, and he's knocking it down when his team needs him to. When he needs to pump fake and drive the paint with use his athleticism, he does that. And so I thought CJ had a great game against Iowa State, and he's coming on strong towards the end of the year, which is only going to bode well with the type of opponent that we are finishing out the year at home with, and then going into the Big 12 tournament. So,
and there's a chance that he comes back next year because he missed all that time. So if he
I have a very good feeling that he's going to come back next year. Let me just say that after this weekend.
Yes.
I don't have total inside information on that. I didn't talk to CJ himself, but I do have a very good feeling he's coming back.
I will say
he would benefit from a full season of I'll let you go, Josh, but I just wanted to finish that thought on CJ. I think he needs one full season for him to put all those pieces together. If anything, this is a way for him to get these reps in so that he puts that final season, hopefully uninjured, knock on wood here. Right. So if he does that, I think he can be a way more complete player. And he's definitely now in the latter part of the season, on this season, he's showing to be a way more complete offensive threat than what he had at any time at his time as a Knight. So go ahead, Josh. Sorry.
I was going to say, hopefully this staff is not needed next year if he comes back. But on top of all the work he's done to get himself back in the gym and to get himself ready and putting in the reps to be where he's playing it now, the trainers and that staff have done a really good job preparing him also to get to that point, because he probably knows them really well by now, and that's really unfortunate.
He knows Mary very well.
Yeah, I would bet, and not for the ways you want to, but it seems like he keeps coming out of these injuries, the same or very similar athletically, and hopefully with deeper skill sets year after year. So I agree with what you're both saying, but that's another piece that absolutely has to be applauded, because without them, or it's, I don't know, it'd be bad. All of the athletic trainers across the staff.
All right. Thank you for that, Josh. And I agree. I do think that CJ has carved a heart into the tape table for sure. All right. Let's go to Alan. Alan, what did you see during this game that you wanted to point out?
I mean, once again, I thought, we got off to this like slower start. We were down, considerably at one point. I think it was like 11 or 12. Wasn't looking good, but they found a way several times they have this year to kind of fight and claw back. And once again, that was just more encouraging to see as they go through this first season in the Big 12. It just, I like, there's only been a couple of games where there hasn't been much fight from this team. They fight really hard. They battle really hard. So it's really good to see. And I felt like they played big, right? I mean, in the second half, they out-rebounded Oklahoma State 25-10. And then they outscored them on second chance opportunities 11-0. So those are like hustle stats. And, and just, I think once again, once they got it together, they played to their strengths, and, and turned out to be a really good win on the road. There hasn't been too many road wins for UCF in conference this year. So as many of those that you can get in this first season is crucial. So I was happy with the win. Obviously, Oklahoma State's not having the best year, but, as each win that we, get, it's just more and more exceeding the initial expectations we had for in-conference play.
Agree. Trey, what are your thoughts?
You said I look like an angel right now. Wow. I mean, kind of just alluding. I think we've overachieved, in my opinion, from what I think from the beginning, just looking at it in total of the season, now that we're kind of wrapping it up, going into the Big 12 tournament. I didn't think they'd play this well. I mean, I know Noah alluded to the 1 for 19 earlier, but, I think –
you didn't just allude. You went all in on that one.
I'm trying to be nice a little bit. But I just think, year one – I guess I don't have the bias that I do with football. Football, I'm like, we need to dominate from the beginning, things like that. So I can take this in a little bit better, pause. But I need to know that
he paused himself.
I think, just when we look back, I think this was not great, but this was a good start to where trajectory we want to go. And I think, again, we can still make some noise in the Big 12 tournament. I think with basketball,
it's just noise this week.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I just think with basketball, it's who's the hottest team at this moment. I think teams can streak and get insanely hot, and right now we're cold, but who's to say we don't flip the switch and just go nuclear the next? I mean, if we go nuclear, I don't know how long the tournament is normally, but say we go nuclear for the next 2 weeks, we might sneak into the tournament. So I think, I'm proud of the team. I'm not moral victory kind of guy most of the time. But, with my non-biased sports, just analyzing it, I think this was a great year one start. So,
yeah, I think overall I think we all agree we're definitely not where we thought we'd be, right? Mm-hmm. Interestingly enough, we're talking about the paint here. 26 points in the paint for UCF, and actually 32 for Oklahoma State, which is a little bit surprising. And we got a double technical foul and 2 technical fouls in this game, which is like, I don't think I've ever seen so many technical fouls called on a UCF team in history that I've watched UCF basketball. And that's a long, long time. So, at the end of the day, I this game was a lot of fun. I felt like the team our team is junior and senior laden, and Oklahoma's State's team is going to be good for a long time because they were mostly freshmen and a few sophomores sprinkled in. They played small ball, and I felt like the team just wanted to come out and dominate them. And that double technical was us being like, hey, we're the seniors here, sit down, freshmen. And I think they took that attitude in the second half and dominated the way they should have all the way through. So good win against Oklahoma State, which, by the way, is 12-16. So no slouch, right? They're not too far under 500 in the Big 12. We are 15-12 as of that game. So let's go ahead and talk about a little less fun of a game. And you know what? I won't say that. This was a great game. Iowa State
was a lot of fun, yeah.
Was a great game all the way up until the last 2 to 3 minutes of this game. It was competitive. The guys came out with energy. They did not look like they were intimidated at all. Iowa State has great defense. You watched it. They trapped really, really well, and they were aggressive to the ball handler, and they made you pass out of it. And we didn't handle that very well, to be frank. As good as our defense is and how often we do it, you think the guys in practice would see this more often, and they would have been a little bit better at it, but they weren't intimidated. And our defense was just as good and got better after the first 5 to 6 minutes of this game. And, for the number 8 team in the country, it just kind of shows how close that margin is between this team being a special team, a ranked team. Well, yes, number 6 now, but number 8 at the time. A special team, a ranked team, and how hard it is to play at our place, because the crowd, Iowa State fans showed up. They were by far the best traveling fan base this year. And that's great because we have basketball games where other teams actually travel. So even the Cows, they might have had 300 fans that show up for a game here, and they're literally a couple of hours away, right? But having people from Iowa State having 20 to 30% of the fan base show that's in the arena show up, that's Iowa State fans, that's what makes this fun to be in this conference.
Question. Do you think maybe it is, I'm just playing devil's advocate, because I don't think we played Iowa State here. Do you think maybe there's a little bit of travel where, if I'm in Iowa in March, I'm trying to get to Orlando too. Is it a little bit of that? Is it a little bit, they've never been to Orlando in general? Do you think it's any of that, and that could possibly wear off, or is it just the Big 12?
I think it's a little bit of both, right? Because we do, the UCF tagline, we live where everybody vacations, right? And why not, if you're going to pick a road trip, not all of us can make it to all the road trips. If you're going to pick one, why not make it Orlando? And supposedly their spring break time's a little earlier than what ours is here. So it aligns well with their spring break time. So why not bring your families to Orlando, go enjoy the parks, come for a basketball game. And a lot of people, it wasn't just traveling fan bases from people coming from Iowa, but there's actually a lot of transplants that were Floridians that were there as well. So those transplants that most of them were older because their transplants are retired here, right? They're going to be here for these games. It's just it's a fan base that cares. In the American, you didn't have that, right? And you have larger alumni bases. They may not be a lot larger schools, but they've been around a long time, and they have fans that care, that show up, and they've been around long enough for them to travel because they have the money to do that. So I feel, right, and I'm going to say feel because this is our first season, but I feel like it's going to be, one, it's going to blow the American out of the water as far as traveling fan bases are going to be on a consistent basis. And two, I do think this is a destination place, and I do think that people will want to come here. So if they're going to watch an away, Iowa State, TCU, Baylor, whatever, Baylor fans showed up, BYU fans showed up in the past for football and basketball and other things, they're going to come to Orlando. I mean, why not? If you're going to spend the money on a plane ticket, make it long enough so you can go to the parks. So I think, yes, that's a part of it. But I also feel like Big 12 fan bases travel a lot better and are more passionate, especially when it comes to hoops, than other conferences we've been in and other conferences in general. That's just my take, especially when considering like we've played the SEC in the past, we played Alabama, we played all these other teams. They did not show up like these Big 12 teams did. So I feel like this is the norm. If you look at the stadium statistics for the Big 12, 16, 17,000 person stadiums, you know what I mean? That's the norm for them, and they're filled. You're going to see a better traveling fan base year in and year out in the Big 12 than anywhere else.
Makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, going to the game and going to the block party beforehand, that like what you said, Roger, is definitely true. I met a number of Iowa State fans, and it was almost 50-50 of the ones that probably circled this game on the calendar as a road trip game that they were definitely going to go to. I mean, would you rather be in Iowa in March, March 1st, March 2nd, or would you rather be, in Orlando, Florida? I mean, it was a beautiful day outside for the most part. And so, I mean, it was certainly that. But then also, yes, I did meet a few, actually a number of Iowa State fans that were there wearing the Iowa State, T-shirt or whatever, and they lived in the Orlando area or Central Florida area for over a decade. So they were out in full force. But what I said at the beginning of the season still applies to a game like this, where like some of the fan base, the UCF fan base, were like a little worried before the hoop season started of like, well, we're going to get all these like, oh, we might fill up the arena, but it's going to be like a large percentage of it is going to be, maybe not the majority, but a large percentage of it is going to be, the opposing team fan base. But the way I see it, what I saw on Saturday night, it just adds to the atmosphere. I mean, when one team goes on a run, it's so amped up. And so I honestly don't really care, because the more success our hoops team has, the harder it is for the opposing fan bases to get those tickets, because we're getting them all, buying them all up ourselves. But even if it is the case, like it was on Saturday night, where I would say probably about 30% of the arena was Iowa State fans, it was still a packed house. And when UCF did something good, certainly the UCF team knew it on the court, because it was loud in that building, and it was such an awesome atmosphere. I mean, which is also what makes, not to back up at all, but it also makes, what we saw on TV at the Oklahoma State game just very, very weird.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, there was nobody there.
I even asked Johnny Dawkins on Friday night. I even asked him, I said, hey, was it like terrible weather there or something? Or like, what's going on? And he's like, no, it was a beautiful day outside. He's like, I have no idea why that was the case. They got a young team and all that, but I just don't know why they were necessarily abandoned on that particular night. But anyways, that was neither here nor there. But it was a great atmosphere on Saturday night. I mean, the building was rocking from both sides, and those Iowa State fans were very very vocal and active, and I thought all of them were respectful and all that, but they were certainly cheering on their team hard, which they should, and no matter what building you're in.
Yeah, so getting into the game a little bit, this just to kind of illustrate, I'm just going to go through some stats, like what the differences were in this game, right? Iowa State field goal percentage 45.7, UCF 40.6, but it was 21 of 46 versus 20 of 47. Right. So we actually got one more possession and we made one less bucket. However, 5 for 21. They shot only 23.8% from three. We shot 1 for 19, 5.3%. There was another game that was in the single digits like that, but I think that's the lowest of the season. Both teams didn't shoot the free throw, shoot at the charity stripe very well. 68.4% for Iowa State, 61.1% for us. Rebounds, we out-rebounded them 31-26. Offensive rebounds, we had 11 versus their 6. Defensive rebounds, dead even, 20-20. And Iowa State is known as a hustle rebounding team, and they certainly did that. They brought as much energy as we had. And for those of you that are talking about, our team having to take prop planes, Iowa State took a prop plane too. The difference also is assists. So if you look at the assists, 16-5, and then obviously turnovers. You hear me talk about this every single game, assist to turnover ratio, right? For Iowa State, it was 16 assists to 20 turnovers. For UCF, it was 5 assists to 36. 36 turnovers.
We didn't have 36.
36. The fact that we were leading this game. Yeah, the fact that we were leading this game, as late as we were, goes to show how good our defense played. Largest lead for them was 10. Largest lead for us, we were up by 4 at one point. We were threatening several times. We got turnovers and we should have scored. But again, a lot of those were wasted on 3-pointers that just weren't falling. And, to quote Nobra, what the are you doing? Right? What the are you doing? And we've said this all season long. When they get over 12 3-pointers, I can't remember the exact stat. When we shoot over 12 3-pointers, we lose at a much higher rate. I think it's something like a 40% higher rate than when we keep it under 12. So what that tells me is, hey, when we're getting on these runs, Johnny, step in and tell him to stop shooting the threes. Those statistics. I know he knows those statistics, and I know it's driving him nuts if they're going 1 for 19. And for those, as much as I give Johnny crap on this podcast, this was not Johnny. Johnny coached a really, really good game. The players lost it in the last 3 minutes of the game. Just dumb mistakes at a bad time. Turnovers at late. The reffing. I'll let Ben wax poetic on that because that was his. He was as upset as I was this week. But it really did. This was a really, really well played, fun game until the last 3 minutes because both teams played really, really well with a lot of energy and did what they do well. So, Ben, do you want to talk about the refs at all? Do you want to get that off your chest? And now's the time.
Yeah. Before I go there, I'll add to a few things that you said, which I agree with all of it. It's the I thought this game, for the most part, played out, I believe, the way UCF expected it to play out. I believe the way Iowa State expected it to play out. When you play against a team like Iowa State, who leads the country in turnovers forced per game and points off turnovers per game, they were averaging something crazy, like 24 points off of turnovers per game. That's insane. 24 points for a team off of turnovers per game. It just shows you how intense they are on defense. And so certainly we knew that. It was something that I was lucky enough to talk with Dawkins about prior to the game on Friday night. And he was very much worried about that. That was his major thing. He knew it was going to be a slugfest. He knew it was going to be a very hard-nosed physical game because that's what, in order for his team to be successful, in order for UCF to be successful, we had to make any game, no matter who we're playing, very physical. And that's the type of style of play that Iowa State plays. It's the reason why they're a top 10 team in the country. And so for the most part, I feel like the game played out that way. It was a very defensive game, but it was also an extremely physical game. When we went on our run in the second half, it was, I think it was back-to-back buckets where Shamari Allen and then Darius Johnson drove the paint and we're going body to body with people and making these really tough physical layups and physical finishes. And one of the things that I was a little bit worried about as the game started to play out, kind of towards the end of the first half, it seemed like despite the 3-point shooting, which we didn't have a whole lot of threes in the first half, I believe that most of them occurred in the second half. I haven't looked at the stats on that. That's just a feeling of watching the game, or me remembering watching the game. It felt like, despite the shooting, it felt like we were playing pretty well. I mean, at a pretty high level of basketball. I thought we were, like, for the most part, executing pretty well. We were playing our game pretty well. We were playing amazing defensively. And what I was worried about with that observation about our team is that we were still down by like 6 points. We were still down by 5 points or whatever. It was like we were playing really well and we still weren't able to take the lead. And so for me, that was even more impressive when we were actually able to, make it a tie. I believe we even took the lead for a short period of time in the second half, just with that great run. That was so exciting in the second half. And so I think that it was very impressive. And it also is kind of impressive for Iowa State, and it just shows how good of a team they are overall, that we were playing at a pretty high level and still, despite the shooting, we were still not able to, kind of impose our will, which we've been able to do against a lot of teams this year, including at the time, number 3 in the country, Kansas. We were able to be more physical in that game back our second conference game. So last thing I'll say is I understand when you look at some of the stat sheets that you just laid out, the turnovers,
let me take this opportunity to dial down my rant by a couple of notches. It wasn't that many turnovers. Sorry. It was
22.
22. Yeah, 22 turnovers. So sorry about that, folks.
If it was 36, we would have gotten blown by a lot.
Well, who knows with this game? I mean, we
still bad though. 5 to 22
didn't get blown out. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
5 to 22 is still bad, but one thing I did feel is Diallo got called for a foul late in the first half when he was just pivoting in the post, and it just so happened the guy's face was there, and that's a legal basketball move. Mm-hmm. I'm sorry, that's a legal basketball move, and they reviewed it because you can't overturn the foul. I believe you can't say it wasn't a foul. They only reviewed it to make sure it wasn't a flagrant foul because elbow contact with the face.
Yeah,
but I that was the start of it for me. Of like, hold on, the offensive player has the right to that position on the court, and he wasn't swinging his arms, he was just pivoting, and just because the guy got hit in the face with an elbow, it's not a foul, and I won't ask for any forgiveness on that. But what I'll also say is that, and this was part of the text talk as well, is that I felt like there was at least 7 points left on the board for made layups or made shots by UCF that weren't and ones. It was almost like it was almost like the referees would wait to see if the shot went in on whether or not they were going to call the shooting foul. And it was in a physical game. I understand the referees don't want to try to call everything. It's a very physical game that we saw on Saturday night, but to see so many tough shots made by UCF through contact that was legitimately a foul, and just because we happened to make that shot, we weren't given the opportunity to make one more point at the free throw line, it was just the tip of the iceberg for how bad this officiating was in this game. And on top of that, I just feel like they would allow that they would allow that finish through contact on one end and then just call the most ticky-tack thing on the very next play on the other end. And it just sucked the momentum out of our team towards the end of the second half. And yes, on top of that, they tried to, maybe shoot their way back into it, try to, maybe if we make one, we could kind of break this horrible streak, and they weren't able to make any of those 3-pointers. It was just a horrible shooting performance. But I was just really, for the first time, and I can remember in many years, because Roger and I have done podcasts together for 5 years now at least, and it's just and I don't know if Roger has ever. I mean, I imagine you can attest to that. I am never one to talk about the officiating ever, especially when it comes to hoops. But I was just really upset about it on Saturday night, because I just felt like it was just an obvious bias that that the Big 12 couldn't imagine us taking down another top 10 team in their conference, and they just weren't going to let it happen.
Well, it was funny because I was actually talking to some fellow Big 12 podcasters about it, and they were watching the game and even mentioned it. And I will say this too: every single fan base in the Big 12 are all saying, like, and I'm talking about like legacy as well, right? Not just the new teams that have come in, have all been saying this year's officiating has been atrocious. And I don't know. We had another coach on the court the other day that was getting into it with coaching with the officials recently as well. I mean, you had an AD, and this was not a Big 12 school, but the point stands. You had Kelvin Sampson out on the field getting ready to throw down with officials. You had Johnny Dawkins was actually yelling at them. If you see Johnny Dawkins more than a stern eyebrow and a crossed arm, you got to be doing something wrong, right? That's like a full on. If Kelvin Sampson was down to his boxer briefs, tirade for Johnny Dawkins, right? So like that was serious, and you've got TCU or Baylor, TCU, Kansas, like everybody's come out and said the officiating this year has been absolutely horrid. And there's been a few times earlier on in the season, we talked about this too, where it felt like because we're one of the new kids on the block that we were not getting the benefit of the doubt. And it was very, what was it? What was the one game where it was like 30 some free throws to like 12 or something like that we had one game? It was like, you don't get that kind of disparity if you're calling it even.
Yeah, and I even felt like the last minute of the game, and I don't want to. I'll shut up after this. I even feel like the last minute of the game, it was like they started calling fouls on them just to even up that number. It was just like I just couldn't believe how bad it was. And the Big 12 needs to do better than this because the teams that are in the Big 12 deserve better officiating than that. And it was just wild. I mean, it's
definitely it's like SEC basketball, meaning the equivalent to football, with SBC officiating. That's how I like to look at it.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't watch this game, but I know from the last 2 years I've been on the podcast and talking, with Ben just about everything. You will talk about any other reason before you blame the refs on anything. You will say even if we ate the wrong dinner before the meal, like you.
I was gonna say something about a bowel movement, but you beat me to it with that.
Yeah, like you will figure out any other reason. So I mean, it had to be atrocious for you to.
Yeah,
I remember looking in the chat and you were mad, like you were like,
I was heated,
they
man.
deliberately took this game. So I mean that. I don't know. That's wild that it was to that point.
We all even went down on the court after the game too, and Johnny was just done talking to Mark Daniels in the post game, and I even tried to get him a little fired up about it, but he wouldn't take the bait. I started to say something. I was just saying, bye to him, good to see him, and all that stuff, and he was just like, it was so disappointed, and he goes. We just got to close out games, man. We just got to close out games. And so, I mean, I know for sure he was upset about the officiating, but certainly that's not the attitude he's going to take into the locker room after a game like that.
And he was
and what he said is also true. What he said is also true. I mean, obviously, despite everything that I just talked about with the referees, we do have to close out games like this, and it's a shame that we haven't been able to close out more of them in conference this season, because it really has, the record's not going to show as competitive as this team was in the first year in the Big 12. That's for sure. So
I agree. I mean, it was like 6 out of 8 conference losses that we had was within 2 points.
Right.
So,
right.
I mean, that just tells you how competitive this team actually was. Alan, did you have anything to say about the Zebras?
Yeah, I mean, I'm kind of with Ben in the sense of like, I usually never blame the refs. It feels like something that just you hear fans do on Twitter, and it's something that I don't like doing, because you can always find blame somewhere else in the game and how the losing team played or how well the winning team played. But yeah, it seemed like there was some pretty egregious calls that, or like maybe like Ben said, that they couldn't imagine UCF, I guess, getting another top 10 win against a incumbent team from the conference, didn't want to embarrass them or whatever, which is crazy to think considering, we're part of the conference now. I don't know if that was the reasoning, or they just didn't want, a top 10 team in the conference to lose ground or not be in the top 10 nationally and have that, that credibility factor kind of taken away by losing to a sub 500 in the conference UCF team. But yeah, I mean, look, we hung tough. It was tough, but now it's great to see another game where it feels like the basketball team is having a lot less struggles somehow than the football team. I don't know how to describe it. It's just weird to see how they're playing way harder games, comparatively speaking, and they stay in all of them. So as disappointing as that was, a missed chance to not pick up another, Kansas-esque win. I think overall the effort was there, and maybe the refs did kind of steal it from us a little bit.
All right, Josh, he's been chomping at the bit. The keyboard keys are melting down. He's been yelling at me to get on here because he's like, I've got something to say. Go ahead, Josh.
It's stale now. No, here's the deal on the reffing. So at the beginning of the first half, I was on my phone. I get to go and scroll back a little bit, 10 seconds at a time. I had it in some of the text chats.
Hold on, Josh. Were you playing with the sword in the woods?
Not that time. I don't believe so. That might have been a little bit earlier.
Okay, you have to think way too hard about that. I'm just going to put that out there, but go ahead, Josh. I'm sorry.
Yeah. So I was rewinding. I was thinking about it. Now, the problem with that was Oklahoma State. The problem with what I was seeing, and again, please note, and this will go on the scroll. Josh is not a basketball referee, but of everything I've seen in my 20 some odd years of watching and playing a little bit at a Y level, like there were things that were called that they wouldn't call it the Y on a good day. Like it was, and I would look at it and go, what's that? And I'd go back 10 seconds. I'd watch it again. I'm like, what? And that was before the second half. So again, not a ref, but it seemed obvious. There's a couple of things that just did not make sense. And I'm not even talking about the elbow to the head when a guy's like a foot shorter than you. Right, like that, yeah, whatever. But like there was other ones, and it wasn't just one time. And then forget the rest of the end. So it really, Johnny's right. You just have to close. And I'm not saying it was 8 on 5, but it certainly felt like something was amiss.
It was at least 6 on 5 because one of the refs was the worst one of all. The one bald ref was the worst one of all. They were all terrible, but that guy
he's just mad because he lost his hair, early male pattern baldness, but that's okay. He didn't take his Rogaine Wheaties in the morning.
My God, man.
All right. So Josh, did you have anything else on the refs? I'm sorry.
No, in that game, that's the thing that kind of sucks about that game is that, we've all seen this. If you're listening, you probably watched it or at least watched highlights. Like that was a competitive game for almost the entire game. And just at the end, it feels like it didn't have, forget not winning, it didn't have the right resolution. Like that game deserved to be a last shot, either team winning, step back three, someone hitting it, probably not us, right? Like that's the game.
Definitely not a step back three, not in a 1-19 game.
That would have been poetic justice.
But that's what I'm saying. That's why I'm saying it wasn't us. But like that game deserved, the fans watching deserve to have a better ending to that game, regardless if we win or not. And it was kind of taken away from us.
All right. So I agree with you there. That game, again, it was exciting to watch. The lead changes were exciting. This team was in it. This is fun basketball. The last 3 minutes were not. I just remember seeing they zoomed in on Shamari Allen's face, and he just looked like, we're going to lose this game. Like, we're exasperated. And that was 3 minutes left, right? It doesn't help when DJ had another untimely turnover. It's like, as good as he's been playing, he has a knack for an untimely turnover late. And just, he's good for at least one silly play in crunch time. And, I wish it were different, but it's not. So on to the next one, right? So we've got Houston coming in. So another chance to have a really, really physical game. I said last time when we played against Houston, when we were at their place, we played that game pretty well until the tail end of that game, and that I said at that time we will win against Houston at home. So I feel like the guys came off that 2-game winning streak. They lost this game. I think they're going to be hungry to win this Houston game. So I'm excited to see how they do. And as long as they don't shoot 1 for 19 from 3, I think we'll be okay. All right. Go ahead. One more thing, right, Ben?
Maybe this is one of the Alan's stats. So forgive me if it's the case, but has UCF ever hosted a number 1 team in the country ever in any sport? Like on campus, I just because we had
Oklahoma for softball last year.
Oh, softball and baseball, right? Those are probably the 2 sports that's happened. But I can't stress enough how incredible that is that we're going to have the number 1 and I know it's Houston, a team that's been in our conference for the last number of years. So maybe it would be different if it was Kansas at number 1 coming in here, right? Even though we beat them when they were number 3 in the country, but having the number 1 team in the country come on our campus, after a game that was very physical on Saturday and a game that the players should feel like they could have won that game. If a few things were different. I mean, this team has shown not only the ability to fight within games, but the ability to bounce back after a tough loss and really bring the competitiveness to no matter who the opponent is. And I just hope that what we saw against Iowa State, the positives that we saw, the defense that we saw, the physicality that we saw, we're going to need to bring every bit of that with some better shooting, which shouldn't be hard to shoot a little bit better than that. But we're going to need
2 for 19.
Yeah. We're going to need to bring a little bit better against the number 1 team in the country. But man, once again, I mean, you've heard me say this word 1 billion times on this podcast this season, but what an opportunity to have a great win, which would be essentially the best win in UCF basketball regular season history, I would say, maybe overall best win ever if they can pull it off. And Houston's a beast. It's not going to be easy to pull it off, but it's amazing that after a game like that on Saturday night that we turn around, 4 or 5 days later and we have the chance to knock off the number 1 team in the country. I think that's just incredible.
All right. I just think that the refs were pissed off and the Big 12 was pissed off because we beat Texas Tech and kicked them out of being ranked. So,
right.
All right. Next up, let's we mentioned the NIT hopes and how we were looking now. Earlier I don't even know if we need to go 1-1 in these two. I think we just honestly need to win a tournament game unless Kansas State turns up the volume in the last two to make it. Go ahead, Josh. You're pointing.
We have to go 1-1 in these last two because that might be the only way we get to a winning record this season. We are 15-13. We just need to win one game and we're going to have a winning record this season. So we need to win one of these next two games.
Hold on. Are you talking about regular conference? Because if we win the first round in the tournament, wouldn't we still be above 500?
Well, we would, but then we'd have to lose a game unless we run it out, and then we'd be tied. To stay above 500, we need to win one more game between these next two. So to me, 16-16 versus 17-15 just feels better. Maybe that's just me.
All right, Josh, I don't know where you're going with that, but we can still we win one game in the conference tournament and we're above 500. And for this team and where we started, I think that's a dub every day of the week. But as far as the NIT is concerned, if Kansas State loses the last two, I think that we're in a good position because we should be hovering right around the 11th team, and we're getting in the conference. And if the Big 12 gets 9 in, that should give us 2 bids. And then if Cincy loses as well, because that would also give us a leg up into the NIT. And it will be tough. It will be tough as we, kind of take a look at where we want to be and where we're going to be. We're right on the knife edge, but for anybody else who's coming up behind us with the schedules that are left, it's going to be tough for them to pass us. So I think we're okay. And we're looking really, really good and a lot better than what we had said before. So, all right. I think we kind of beat the coaching rumors to death last week. I don't think anything has changed. Period. So I think we're good there. There's a huge discussion going on in the chat that I won't talk about till later. But Ben, I did want to give you an opportunity real quick before we moved on to football. Tell us any of your takeaways or stories from this weekend, being that anything that the insider basketball per se from your time there over the weekend and celebrating that team and Coach Spira, being there this weekend.
Yeah, it was we look forward to it every year. The UCF basketball alumni, similar to how football looks forward to their kind of weekend every year. We do have a pretty large, community as far as the group chat goes. Mostly early 2000s guys are on this huge group chat, and we coordinate with Coach Dwight Evans, who was our former coach. He was here when I played. He was an assistant coach that actually stayed over from the previous staff when Kirk Spira was hired at UCF, and so he coordinates a lot with Carlos McCants on putting these alumni weekends together. It was the first time Coach Spira has been on campus since the year he left, and so it was a very special. He cut his Hawaii trip short in order to come back to town for it. First time he has had a vacation ever during basketball season. And he cut the trip short. He arrived on Friday morning, or maybe it was Thursday evening, but he arrived the day before or the day of the reception for Friday night. And it was a great reception. It was in the Players Lounge, which I didn't even know existed. It's less than a year old, above the old venue. Or I should say the venue. It's not the old venue, but I call it it's the old UCF arena, as far as I know. And I used to say, and Coach Evans was saying, yeah, what do you think about this? We used to have our pregame meals up here every once in a while, and blah, blah, blah. And I said, I don't really remember the pregame meals being up here, but I do remember, and I was pointing over to because the old UCF arena had where the bleachers used to be upstairs, had you pull them back, and there was 2 basketball courts up there on either side, and that's where we used to do our individual workouts. And so what I said to Coach Evans was, I don't really remember being eating pregame meals up here, but I do. And I pointed over to where the old courts were upstairs and said, I do remember you kicking my butt in individual workouts plenty of times on that court over there. It was really great to catch up with my old teammates and teammates. Or alumni, I should say, basketball alumni throughout, the generations of UCF basketball. And we honored the 93-94 team, the first team to make the NCAA tournament under Coach Spira. I believe it was his second year or so as the head coach when they made the NCAA tournament. It was cool because Coach Hinshaw was actually, he was the quarterback of the football team, and he played basketball for 2 seasons as well. So he was on that 93-94 team. I got to talk with him for a while during the game, and really had some great conversations with him. But I think one of my highlights of my weekend, and just real quickly before I wrap it up, is and I mentioned this in the group chat. I was talking with Spira for a little while. We were catching up during the reception on Friday night, and then Dawkins walks up, and it's really just my wife and I, Coach Spira, and Coach Dawkins, and we're just chatting, and I'm just talking basketball with both of them. And most of the time, I'm just kind of stepping back and allowing the 2 coaches to talk basketball in front of me while I'm just kind of witnessing it. And it was one of those moments where I was just kind of staying present, because it was really cool to be able to experience that one with a coach that was my coach at UCF, and then the current coach who I have so much respect for at UCF now, who was an incredible player and has a great coaching career himself. Just being there in that moment with the 2 of them, just kind of talking hoops. It was really fun, and it was a really cool thing for a guy that's so into basketball like myself. So that was probably the highlight of my weekend. And then we just had fun catching up with the guys.
Awesome. Any tidbits that you can share, or stories that somebody else shared from that time together that UCF fans might not know?
No, not necessarily. I mean, I'll say, though, it was the 20-year anniversary of our team in 2004 that made the NCAA tournament. So I don't know why we didn't get honored, but hopefully in 5 years, the 25th.
Hold on, didn't you guys get pulled out in half court like last year or the year before?
Yeah, well, it did not the last few alumni nights, I guess you should say. All basketball alumni have gone on the court and been introduced. This year it was just honoring the team. We weren't even going to, I guess maybe an insider story is that we weren't actually going to have this event this year. Dawkins and Carlos McCants, rightfully so, I think, wanted to kind of make it a little more special and do it every other year. And a lot of us early 2000s guys were just going to buy a couple suites of the game and actually put it on ourselves, without UCF. But Carlos, to his credit, came up with the idea to honor the 94 team and have Kirk Spira back and that team back. And then it turned into the alumni event. So I'm very thankful to the Varsity Knights and Carlos McCants for kind of putting on the team or putting on the event. And maybe a little bit of insider tidbit is that talking with Jacob Ammerman, who's the video coordinator for UCF, he's been on the UCF coaching staff for a long time. Let's just say he told me he's very excited about next season and the team that is going to be here, and someone who's going to be here in the future who we know is already committed, but may be here a little bit earlier than expected, got me pretty excited. So I'm not going to say
that reclassification rears its ugly head again.
So we may have an occurrence of that, and it got me really excited about the future. Not only that, with obviously adding a guy like Mikey Williams and some others who may stay, which is also great as well. So I think I'm really excited about how this hoops team is going to close out this season, but the future is bright at UCF basketball, that's for sure.
Awesome. All right. Moving on. Let's go ahead and pivot. All right. You guys are out of practice. You guys get you take a show off and it's like,
I have a sleeping child next door. I'm not yelling.
That's fine. But Trey was late. Like, no Alan. Ben was like just smiling. And I was like,
Alan has a sleeping kid next door too.
I've got a sleeping adult next door. So how about that?
Wake them up.
All right. UCF football, spring ball. It says spring ball started today. I thought it was next week, Alan.
Bueller.
Oh, sorry. Today. No? Maybe it is next Monday. I'm sorry. It might be. I thought it was next.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's next Monday. So,
whoopsies.
All right. Well, Alan will check into that.
Show notes at 9 a.m.
We'll talk about the 15-second clips next week on the Night and One podcast. Make sure you show up.
The 10-second stretch.
Especially clips.
Yeah,
Exactly.
All right.
Overanalyze.
So let's talk a little bit about one thing that did happen this week was UCF at the Combine. So this season, which we didn't have last season, but this season we have two guys at the Combine, Javon Baker and Tylen Grable. We've been talking about Javon quite a bit. We didn't really talk about Tylen all that much, but both of them making some waves, and especially Tylen Grable. I think he came in and surprised a lot of people and made himself some money at the Combine. His vertical jump, he was in second or third place in pretty much all of the things that he participated in, all of the different events. And I think he surprised a lot of people. He ran really, really well in the 40. His final was 4.54 for a guy his size. That's pretty solid. Or not 4.54, 4.5.
4.9. 4.95.
4.95. That's what I meant to say. And considering that Javon Baker's was 4.54 for a guy that's 308 pounds and 6'6", that's booking it. He was, I think, third place at the Combine. Two guys tied for higher than what his was. His vertical, he had a really, really good vertical. And
36 and a half.
Yep, 36 and a half for a guy that big. To get 36 and a half inches on a vertical jump is freaking phenomenal and tells you how explosive he was. And he really, really, really moved himself up the ladder as far as his potential for the Combine. Matt Lee, I know we forget about him because he went to Miami at center. Also was at the Combine, performed really, really, really well. He played, remember, folks, he played at UCF, got graduated, and then went to Miami. He did credit UCF for helping him become the center that he is today, but he graded pretty well as well. And then Javon Baker, we've been hearing quite a bit about him, and there's been a lot of noise about him. Other than his 40-yard dash, he actually did really well as well, and is well thought of. So, Alan, I know you were looking at this pretty hard too. Do you want to share some thoughts on our Combine performances?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, it was nice to have some guys with some NFL looks again. It feels like last couple of years it's been a little bare. I mean, outside of like Kalia Davis a couple of years ago. So, great to get a couple guys back in here. But yeah, I mean, both players really made a name for themselves or increased their draft stock during this Combine. Baker was a guy that really, even before the Combine, had already kind of started rising a little bit. And then Grable, did fantastic job. I mean, they rated him the 14th best offensive tackle, and I think he was kind of overlooked a little bit at UCF. He was kind of an unheralded transfer coming from a FCS program, and but he ended up being really good, and his athleticism looked off the charts. And I mean, I think he ended up having the second the second biggest vertical jump, was one of the fastest, actually made a couple had a couple of very close to making a couple records for an offensive tackle. So I think even more so than Baker, he really added some dollar signs or added some zeros to his draft stock. So that was really nice to see. And then, Javon, obviously the 40 time wasn't super impressive, but I guess like we talked about in the chat, not known for that type of speed, but he graded pretty well in a lot of the other areas. And, he was catching passes from some of the, best quarterbacks in college football this past year and looked pretty good on a couple of those routes and some of those catches he had. So I think they both look like they're going to be drafted somewhat relatively high. So I'd be curious to hear your guys' thoughts on where you think they're going to get drafted after those performances.
Yeah, he did, by the way. He was first in broad jump.
Right. Okay, that's what it was. Broad.
So
like
he was third in 40-yard dash, 10-yard split. He was second because I know that's a big one that Tre looks at. Broad jump was first. Vertical jump second among all offensive linemen at the draft, and was really, really close to some previous records as well.
Yeah, I mean, go ahead, Ben.
I was just going to really quickly say I'm just excited to hear that both of those guys did their job at the combine. They improved their draft stock. They confirmed things that that the scouts maybe already knew about them, but they improved upon a lot of things that maybe they didn't. And I'll just say one thing that I just found really interesting when I heard 4.54 as Javon Baker's 40 time. I was like, for some reason that number is like sticking out in my head, and I looked it up. That's the exact 40 time that Gabe Davis ran at the NFL Combine in 2020. So like that's an interesting thing. Obviously, that bodes well for Javon Baker to be compared to somebody like Gabe Davis, who's probably going to make some serious money this offseason. And so anyways, being compared to somebody like that coming out of UCF, I think is a fantastic thing on top of the impressive, the other things that he did very impressive this week. So, happy for both of those guys. I don't know enough about the NFL draft stock to say where they'll fall, predict they fall, but I have heard like third round for Javon Baker, and that would be just phenomenal. So I'm kind of happy for him that he decided to make that jump. If he can land in the third round, that's amazing. So
yeah. I mean, just to quickly touch on Matt Lee, I remember like his development is kind of just crazy because I remember like he was starting as a true freshman, and it was when they played at Georgia Tech, and he could not get a good snap down for whatever reason. I don't know what it was. But to be from that, and I remember people were upset on Twitter to go from that to, at the NFL Combine for being a center and being a very good center. That's just shows the development. Maybe not even just UCF, but like, again, just as the player, being able to find kids like that, develop them to be
was a
NFL
2-star.
players. Yeah. Like, again, that's what you want from coaching,
Which, by the way, we stole from the Cows.
Yeah, I remember that whole recruitment cycle. I remember that. But yeah, I think Grable probably did the most to improve his stock because, again, it's hard to find 6'6" guys, 300-pounders that can run. That's just hard. And then even not just the 40, but the vert and the broad. Like you said, Rodrigo was like second, third, first in a lot of those. That's really what you kind of look for. The reason I look at the 10-yard split is because, again, my coaches used to say football's not played in 40-yard burst. It's played in a lot of 10-yard, 5-yard split. So the 5-10-5 shuttle, they love that because, again, you're going to be moving in those kind of directions. But yeah, I think he probably did the most. For the most part, the combine is for like the guys with NFL draft grades. So having those two likely because they didn't do bad, they're probably going to hear their names called. Exactly where, I don't know too much about O linemen. So from people that I've talked to, Baker, again, they kind of expected him to run. We've talked about it. He's not, the fastest guy, but they expected him to run, around 4.5s. Anything faster would be great. Anything slower would be bad. So I don't think he hurt himself there. But they told me his routes is what, is get his buzz. He runs very crisp route. Timely drops, more just concentration. I think they can fix that from some of the friends that I have that work in there. They think he's going to be a really good player. Third round's what I'm hearing. I thought, around, like I said, around fourth or third. But again, it's that time of the year where the buzz, once you get the buzz going, it can ride all the way up. I don't know if you guys remember like Rashad Perriman.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Pro day, it shot up. And I think same thing with, Traquan and Mike Hughes. Those guys are good players. And Gabe Davis, once you see them run, see them in person is different than watching it on tape. And, they're doing their part of looking good. So, he had a good day at the Senior Bowl, or a good week at the Senior Bowl. And he's just stacking the days, man. And I think that's all you can do. Keep on stacking them, keep on building up. And now, again, I don't know when Pro Day is, but that's another chance to showcase his talents if he wants to run again, and maybe improve on it. Because, again, people forget you're in an empty stadium. Like, it's not like a football. It's weird. You don't ever really run a 40-yard dash like that. Normally, it'd be like in the weight room not weight room, but in the locker, in the indoor, where it's just your teammates. You're with people you don't know, cameras everywhere, but there's nobody in the stands. It's just GM. So it might be 100, 200 people in the stands, and it's spread out, and it's just empty. So it's hard, and it's definitely a different kind of stage. That, again, you're never going to do that again. But they put so much stock into it. So I think those guys made a lot of money. Specifically, Grable, because he was athletic.
So you mentioned the pro day. Remember, folks, this will not be on campus. The Big 12 is doing this year. They're doing a pro day where all of the big. What's that?
It's starting this year.
Yes. Okay. This year, they will be doing the Big 12 Pro Day in Texas. The dates will be March 29th through 30th for the Pro Day. So the end of the month, they'll have that opportunity. It'll be good for, the scouts, and it'll obviously be good for some players where the scouts don't have to go to as many campuses. Yeah. So that'll allow them the maximum exposure from all of the teams. Although I've
never understood why this isn't more of a thing, because it helps everybody in the long run. It saves the scouts time from traveling. It might help guys that might fly under the radar, and they come out there and run a 4.2. Guys are gonna be like, "Hold on, who are you? Where'd you come from? We need to go back and watch your tape." One of the main people I remember that benefited a lot from that was Causey. He had a good senior year, played really well. But again, that was his only year. But when he came out there, and I think he ran 4.3, he ran low 4.3s. Scouts are gonna be like, hold on, we knew you were fast. We didn't know you were that fast. So, and then they go back and watch your tape. So I think just the more, because Javon Baker's a big name. They obviously want to see the big name guys. So coming to see the big game guys, you can see the guys who you might not see, might flown under the radar a little bit, might have not been utilized to their potential, and then they showcase it. And I think, again, for the players, you get that opportunity to be with other guys and maybe just your one chance to stand out. And for the scouts, you don't have to travel every, couple of hours. I mean, they knock out.
The bad part would be for all of those players that were UFDA undrafted free agents, right? The previous year, and didn't make a roster and were wanting to come back. A lot of those players a year or two later will come back to campus and
retest, try to get their face and name,
be part of the pro day. And if they're in Texas now and not on home campus, that may be a distraction for those players that are doing that and trying to do that. So that would be the only place where I would see it would be a negative. But it'll be interesting to see how that goes. I know with Grable, he kind of sat out some of the exercises this time because I think his agent probably told him, "Hey, dude, you
1,000%
have it on all of these things. You might want to back off on that, and then he may do them at the pro day just so there's less visibility on it."
Yeah, I mean, it's again when you go out there and run fast. I don't know if you guys followed it, but like the guys that ran fast for the most part or did something that was just like whoa, eye popping, they either won't run a second 40, they won't do the drills because again, you kind of want to leave that aura. If you say you want to leave that, make them thinking like, holy smokes, like did he really just do that? And there's a part of that gamesmanship, kind of, not literally, but you're trying to get the system. You want you to get drafted as high as you can. You don't want to do anything. If you do something well like Grable, you run well, you're doing all this explosive stuff. You don't want to go out there and trip on your own feet and look like you can't do it because all that's for naught. I doubt it would happen, but it could, and you don't want to do that for nothing. So you definitely know that he got the phone call and was like, "Hey, man, you just knocked out the park. We're icing it. We're going to give you." Again, you said
we're shutting down, bro.
Yeah, the 29th. That's
30 days on that.
Days. Yeah, you have 25 days to just do because you've knocked out the 40 part. Now you can just do straight drill work. What you're going to be expecting, things like that.
Strength training, exactly. So they can get the max number of lifts in on the bench.
Exactly.
That sort of stuff.
And a little off topic, like another to the opposite side, like a lot of guys come in and they'll just weigh in and try to get like Bryce Young. We all know he's a small quarterback. I think he came in and weighed at like 210 last year. He doesn't ever play at 210, but they're like, okay, like you weighed in, come do your drills. Agent's like, no, he's not doing any drills till pro day. Like he's not going to do any of that because you put on 15 pounds in 2.5, 3 months. You're not going to be able to move with it. You're not used to it yet. So it works both ways. So he's definitely, I think he got the call like, hey man, you knocked out the park. Let's focus on that pro day. Mm-hmm. And the one when we go to Dallas. And again, his name's buzzing, I'm assuming, because top 3 in all those positions at that size is impressive. And that's one thing that it's hard to find in the NFL is athletic linemen. There's so many receivers that we saw, so many DBs, position guys. It's hard to find athletic guys in the trenches because that's what the game's turning into now.
Yeah, other than Mims, who's 330 pounds and just like knocked it out of the park. All right. So do we have any other guys that we think that you guys are looking for as undrafted free agents this year? And then where do you think, just real rapid fire, Baker and Grable, where do you think they will land? Let's start with Alan.
I think Baker goes 3rd round, and I think Grable goes 4th round. That's what I'm thinking. And then as far as UDFAs, I have to think Tremont Morris-Brash is going to get a look from someone. He had a really good super senior year there and was first team all conference. So I think he'll get an undrafted free agent signed kind of right after the draft. And then maybe some camp invites like Jason Johnson. I think he may get a camp invite. Maybe JRP as like if he's willing to maybe be some sort of like athlete role, obviously not a quarterback. I think those are probably the 3 most likely. Maybe like an offensive lineman. I'm trying to think like maybe like Lohaki Pole maybe could get like he's pretty. I think he has a chance of getting UDFA or at least a camp invite. And there'll probably be a couple others, but I think as far as sticking power, it's probably only Tremont Morris-Brash in my opinion.
Yeah. I'm with you, Alan. I think Javon Baker's probably right now 3rd round safely, with the potential to probably climb. Just again, if you can find one team to fall in love with you, they'll take you. So he could get to the 2nd round. But I think he's safely in the 3rd. Grable, again, I don't know too much about O-line play, so I'll just say like you said, 4th or 5th round, something like that. And again, I think Tremont Morris-Brash he's going to get a shot. I think he's going to have to work. The pro day is going to be big for him, showing off athleticism, movement. So I think he'll get a shot. I think JRP will. I've always alluded to like the Taysom Hill role where he's going to have to play a lot of different roles. He's going to have to play, you know, a little gimmicky quarterback, maybe some receiver, maybe some running back. He's probably going to have to be on special teams. Because again, if he goes out there and runs a 4.3, low 4.3, somebody's going to take a shot because that you just don't have that. And he's not a small dude. He's a bigger kind of guy. So he'll get a shot. I don't know if it'll be a tryout or undrafted. And I think those are like the bigger guys. The O-lineman will probably get a shot because, again, those are hard to find, just big guys that can move if he moves well. So I think those are the guys. I think that's what it's going to be looking like most likely. Again, there's going to be a surprise. There's going to be somebody that tests out of the water that we don't know, and is probably going to get a shot because, you know, that's the NFL. That's what always happens. Somebody's going to do that. So,
Ben?
I don't have much more to add to as far as where Grable and Baker will go. I agree with what the guys said. I'll say that Trayvon Morris-Brash just smells like the Jacksonville Jaguars pick that is going to be taken from UCF, which happens almost every year as an undrafted free agent. I wouldn't be surprised if that's the call that he goes to. It just seems like that always happens every season. And yeah, I agree about JRP. I mean, I feel like some team is going to fall in love with his measurables from a speed standpoint, from his quickness. We said it all the time, you know, love him or hate him as far as his ability as a quarterback. He always seemed to be the biggest or the best athlete on the field every time he walked across the white line. So I think that'll be evident in the way he tests, and some team will take a chance for him to bring him into camp. I think there's no doubt that he'll be in a camp somewhere, but I don't think he'll be drafted by any means. So yeah, I think I agree with what the guy said, and I would be a little surprised if Trayvon Morris-Brash wasn't able to make a team. I think he has he has probably the best chance of outside of the two that we mentioned will get drafted as Alan said, of sticking.
Yeah. And another thing, like JRP has wide receiver, like he played wide receiver at Ole Miss. I think that helps him a little bit. Just again, he's shown the capability to kind of just do it. I don't know how great he is at it, but I think that'll help him get his shot and, you know, get his foot in the door. After that, you know, it's up to him.
I mean, you look at some of the offenses in the NFL. You look at some of the offenses in the NFL right now. I mean, this West Coast plus basically is that, you know, like there are a lot of short passes. There are a lot of swing passes out to those athletes trying to get them in space. It's just like college football. And if he can go in with that mentality of like, I'm going to take advantage of any spot I could possibly get. I mean, I think that he has a shot of
because like you said,
camp and staying.
Yeah. Like you said, if it's one thing about him, he's always the best athlete on the field, at least at this level. So if he can even just be one of the guys, you know, he's going to get a shot. So,
all right, Josh.
I mean, I'm trying to go as deep as I can on this 2023 roster to see if there's anyone else possible, and I'm not seeing it. I mean, you talked about everyone that could probably possibly go unless someone randomly tests out of their mind and doesn't have enough film and someone wants to take a shot. I would say for the rounds, I would say Baker's probably going to be a third or fourth. And Grable, here's the thing, it's offensive linemen are interesting because some years, like, it's half of the first and second round. Like sometimes it's off the charts. So he could even get about the same third or fourth round. I think they're all gone by the fifth. That's my guess on there. But I'm like, is Mark Anthony Richards gonna like impress someone and have no film, but he has the stereotypical body of a running back? Like, I just no. Maybe I hope so. You know, I'm looking deep in this roster, and I'm not seeing too much else. Is Wohan going to be a tight end somewhere? I mean, he has a pretty good frame, and he actually did some great blocking, but he didn't do a lot of pass catching. It's but you know, that could possibly happen. But we're talking, you're probably I'd say about 4 undrafted free agents, probably.
I'm saying the only thing I'm seeing is maybe some special teams guys. Trayvon Morris Brash, he's a good college player. He doesn't quite have the size and he doesn't quite have the speed for the NFL game. So his pro day is going to be pivotal as to what kind of shot, if any, he gets.
Gotta run fast. He's got because he's small. I mean, well, for NFL, he's a smaller guy, so he's gonna have to run fast.
Yeah.
Yep. All right. UCF did add a new coach this past week, Lee Summit. He's from Missouri, and there's a certain Missouri player that played for him that may be heading to UCF as well as part of that deal. He's going to be in an analyst role for right now, and we'll see what happens there. But he's very well known in recruiting circles at that high school. Sent a lot of starters to Mizzou. So I imagine some of he's going to be leaned on when it comes to recruiting in that area as well. We're starting to kind of put our tentacles out to, different areas of the country a little bit now that we've got some recruiting noise and some recruiting chops. We'll still have a Florida focus, but I do think that you'll start seeing us bring some guys from outside of the Southeast, to the table when it comes to recruiting. UCF Maryland game was for 2025 was canceled / postponed, more than likely canceled. We're not going to want a lot of P5 teams on our out of conference schedule, and Maryland, they're going to have some changes in how many in the Big Ten, how many games that they're going to end up playing in conference. So it'll be interesting to see what happens there. As far as replacements are concerned, I would expect to see a lower end G5 or a close team within the state of Florida to kind of plug in there to either relieve travel or, have an easier game. Same thing we made fun of the SEC for when we were, in the G5. We're going to do the exact same thing because we already have a Power 5 on the schedule. But we did have an open hole, as I remember, on the schedule for 2025. So we're going to need to fill 2. So it'll either be a bye game or it'll be someone close within the state of Florida. I feel like that will make that up. So that's it for football. We've got a little baseball to talk about. It's really starting to ramp up. The team was undefeated until we had one loss. But we only have one loss. So this team...
You're always undefeated until you have a loss, Roger.
Well,
come on.
Yeah, I know, but I just didn't want to mention that it was to the Cows. But okay.
They're not the worst team in the world.
Oh, it is the worst thing in the world of all teams.
Oh, no. Worst thing? Yes. Worst team? They're not a horrible team. We just beat them, though.
They haven't proven how good they are yet, right?
That's
so
fair.
We'll see. UCF beat FAU 11-6, which has proven to be a good team this year. And beat them pretty convincingly. And it was 11-2 for most of the game. And then, towards the end, and that was a midweek game, towards the end, our relief, the pitchers that were coming in for relief got the job done, but allowed some runs to score. We did win the series against the Cows 2-1. Saturday was the first loss, but we won a nail biter on Sunday, 1-0, which, I don't know how much better the Cows pitching is. I mean, they're a better team than like some of these smaller teams. But Indiana State, even when we played them, they were, I think they were a World Series team, or not a World Series, a round of 16 team. So they are no slouches, brought most of their players back. UCF RPI, we're still at, I think we're at number 8. We were number 6. We are sitting at 8-1, and we've got Florida on the schedule next, who is number 4 in the country. So it'll be interesting to see. We actually stack up better in some stats, and they stack up better in a few stats. It depends on what you look at. Ben, baseball's kind of your thing. Anything that you want to share about the other than I love Coach Wally's interviews. I mean, they're just amazing. And, like we've been telling everybody who watched our interview, that's the guy. I mean, he's one of us. So, enjoy him because he wants to be here. He's good at what he does. He's our hitting has gotten so much better, making more contact, which we're getting more runners on base. And that was reflected in where we were statistically nationally. But Ben, what did you have to share on the baseball team, and what are your initial observations this year?
Yeah, I agree with you. I mean, we're 15th in the country right now in batting average. We're batting over 330 as a team, which is very impressive from top to bottom. I mean, that's impressive. I don't care who you're playing. You're playing against other D1 baseball teams. If you're able to bat that well through 9 games, that's really impressive. Just watching Wally's interviews, it's just, just watching, how he articulates like what he's seeing and what he's like telling the guys during the game, before the game, how their preparation is. I don't know how, like, I guarantee you, without even talking to a single player on the team, they just love playing for Rich Wallace. I think he has this team poised and ready. It feels like each game that you watch him, and we haven't been able to watch all the games, obviously, because of TV and all that, but like, it just seems like each game
Terry.
Each game you watch him, they just kind of they seem to like figure out one more thing. It almost seems like they're just like building this thing brick by brick, and it's really impressive to watch. I mean, beyond the hitting, one of the things that Rich talked about in our interview with him, as far as some of the things that he really wanted to hold importance is the defense, in particularly up the middle of the field. And we've just seen spectacular plays from our middle infield to out to the center field position. I feel like the confidence that our pitchers have in themselves and their ability is stemming from how well the defense is playing overall. I will also say that a guy like Danny Neary, I mentioned his name last week. I feel like is an excellent defensive catcher, somebody who's able to, be the starting, catcher for the most part, allow Sundin to be DH a little more often than he, as far as he, can have the proper, fitness and rest that he would need to have, because Sundin just is batting out of his mind still. And we kind of just have with batters at every position in the lineup. There is no breaks in this lineup so far. As far as what we've seen, we've got guys that can not only hit for contact, but hit for power and kind of put the ball in the right spots. I mean, you have Lex Bodeker, who probably struggled the most through the first 2 weeks of the season going into the Cows series. I mean, he's the guy at the end of the game with a runner on second in the bottom of the 10th, and he comes through in such a huge way with the walk-off. I mean, not only that he was able to get the hit, to me, he just battled at that at bat. And he fought a couple off, and he hit the ball, like, he kind of took the outside pitch and he like hit it where it was pitched, basically is kind of a common phrase. And if you're around baseball a lot, I mean, it was an outside pitch that he slapped the opposite way in between the gap. And it was just a big time, hit in a crucial moment. And we've seen a lot of those so far this season. So, and then on top of that, you got the pitching staff, in particularly, the bullpen has been very impressive. I think the relief pitching has been, outside of that one game on Saturday night, which, I just felt like the Cows got hot at the right time in that game and were able to put a few across when they needed to. But I feel like the bullpen overall has been very impressive. And then Sunday, Santala goes out there and and pitches an absolute gem. I mean, he just pitched fantastic over the weekend. I think that graphic that UCF Baseball analytics, put up, the Twitter account there, put up today that I shared with the rest of you guys. I think it was something like he's averaging like something crazy, like 75% first strike, percentage, which is just wild. Being able to stay ahead in the counts like that is very important. And so yeah, our pitching looks much improved, and our defense looks much improved, and our especially from a hitting for contact standpoint, is improved over last year as well. So against some tougher opponents coming up, we'll see if it holds out. But it just seems like they're on the upward trajectory, as opposed to just surprising people right now. It seems like they're building upon every good thing that they're doing on the field, which is just great to see.
Yeah, Ben Vespi back with a vengeance. We were waiting for him to make his reemergence. He had a lot of promise when he first went out. Came to UCF and then had an injury and didn't pitch as well last year as what everybody was expecting. But this year he's come out and he's throwing heat, and he's doing really, really well. So that's exciting to see. As you mentioned, Santala. And then there's another guy that I'm interested that has a pretty wide variety of pitches. I can't remember his name. I'm just going to call him Brick House because I know it's something house that has been pitching. If you guys will look up his name real quick for me, for some reason it's escaping me, probably because it's 11 o'clock. But I've been very, very impressed with his ability to have such a wide variety of pitches. And if you're a hitter, it's much harder because everybody, when you're coming in as a hitter, what pitchers like to throw. And that helps you anticipate when the ball's coming out of the pitcher's hand, because when you're hitting, as soon as that ball leaves, you can sort of tell what that ball is going to do based on the angle, the finger, how the ball is being clutched, and then what the release looks like. And if you're standing behind the plate, I don't think anybody who has not played baseball understands how fast that ball moves. You literally have to see and anticipate where that ball is going to be within a split second once the ball leaves the pitcher's hand at the collegiate level. You don't have time to figure that pitch out. So you're looking at how it's released, where it's released, the arm angle, to kind of figure out what kind of pitch it is, and you're swinging like a second later. So, or not even a full second later, in order to make contact with that pitch. So, he's, with him having such a wide variety of pitches, it makes it really, really hard on hitters because there's so many options on where he can put the ball, and his ball placement has been phenomenal. So for me, that's been a pleasant surprise because he was not on this team last year. And
I think you're thinking of Cade Boxrucker. Is that who you're
Boxrucker? That's what it is.
Boxrucker.
Yeah, Boxrucker has played really, really, really well. I've been really impressed with his pitching. He'll be a starter. So it'll be interesting to see how that all plays out. But the pitching, like you said, the closers have played extremely well. And everything I've heard, Santala gave an interview after his phenomenal performance against the Cows. And he talked a lot about confidence and how the pitching staff this year has a lot more confidence in what they're doing, and are figuring out ways. They're not getting overwhelmed. A lot of times last year when they got behind in the count, or they were late in the game and they were pitching from behind, they started making mistakes and they weren't consistent. They were feeling the pressure. And Coach Wally's and the pitching coaching staff has been really focused in on making sure that they're not feeling the pressure or know how to deal with the pressure and taking it one pitch at a time. And I've seen that a lot this year, whereas last year that would have led to mistakes.
Yeah, I feel like the defense that's backing them up gives them that much more confidence as well. I agree with you. They seem to be loose on the mound no matter what the situation, which is great to see.
All right, Tre, have you caught any of the baseball games since you can't watch them on TV? What is you doing, Terry? Come on, Terry.
No, I mean, I didn't get because I wasn't on last week, so I didn't get to talk about the UM game that we went to. I talked to Coach Wally afterwards. I mean, they were amped, man. You could tell those guys.
Did he remember you from the podcast? I hope so.
Yeah. He said he appreciated me coming out. I said, I told you. I said, I could have gave you a couple innings, but it looks like you were good. Yeah, I mean, those guys look like they are enjoying playing for him. Like just as amped as he is, I think, like you said, Roger, he's a guy's guy, and players notice that, and they relate to that very well, at least in my experience, because he's walked in those shoes specifically, at UCF. Yeah, like so, like that holds weight to guys, even in the world of transfer portal and guys coming in. When you play for a coach who's walked in your shoes as an athlete, it resonates differently. And again, he's just as amped as those guys, where he's just as into it, just as fired up, And I think, again, when your head coach is like that, the way your head coach is rubs off on the team a little bit. I think that just goes with, at least up into college. I don't know so much about the pros, but for sure, little league, high school, and college, it rubs off. And again, he's amped. And I think that's what you want, that as a player, a coach who's just as into it as you, who's just as passionate as you, and again, who understands it. I think that's the perfect formula in my opinion. But again, we have some big games coming up. I want this honeymoon phase to continue to go on. I want this to keep building it. I don't want it to just be this early on and then it just kind of fizzles out. I think I want it to keep going. So again, it's at the end of the day, it's up to the guys to keep building it how they want. If they want this program wherever they want to take it, they got to do it, and how they want it is how they have to do it. So I'm excited. It was fun.
One of the things I loved about that, what you're saying about, just while he's here, he's a UCF Knight, he bleeds black and gold. It's like after the FAU win, he knew the social media cameras were on him. He wasn't shying away from it. He said,
exactly.
He said, good win. He said, good win, and then we're going to go on this weekend and we're going to take that team out west. Like he wasn't going to call them USF. He wasn't going to call them the Bulls. He said, that team out west. Like, I mean, and you saw it all weekend in the interviews. He was not about to. I mean, he did everything short of basically calling them like the cows, like we would.
Yeah, exactly.
I will say
he wanted to win those games. It was awesome.
He did say and make it a point to say that we should keep that series going.
Yes.
And both teams want that to happen. So I think that's a good thing. And I think Tre may have run out of battery life again. It's the 2 hour mark. All right, Alan, anything you want to say to back clean up on this before we move on?
I'm gonna be honest, I don't have a lot to say about baseball, but no, I mean, it's good. We're off to an 8-1 start. I did go to the FAU UCF games. That was cool. Got to the home run there, and the team looks good. Hopefully they can keep up this hot start into conference play.
Awesome. Well, let's go ahead and move on. One of the things we're not going to have Tre yell at a cloud. I don't think Tre's yelling at anything right now because he's disappeared from the screen. We don't have any UCF Re-Education quite yet. Ben, that's a missed opportunity on your part with all those people there. I mean, geez Louise, bro. However, I do want to give a quick shout out.
I gave some education with saying that I'd never been to this players' lounge before, and I didn't remember eating a pregame meal up there. Come on, now it's a little bit. I gave you a tidbit.
Okay. All right. Maybe. So Ben did tell us that his spider bite in the old Wayne Dench gave him some extra strength.
If you know, you know, man. It's tough. That old Wayne Dench was no joke.
Yep. All right. But I want to give some listener love out there. We had 5 new subscribers. As a reminder, everybody, like, subscribe,
And grind. That's the end.
No, wrong show, John. And make sure that that you comment. We do have some folks from other fan bases that are out there listening, watching, and leaving comments. So let's make sure that we're stepping up and doing the same. All right. Beyond that, let's go ahead and move on to Alan's oxymoronic. Oh, I've messed that up. Alan's oxymoronic stat of the week. Alan.
Fortunately, Ben actually did take my stat for the.
Hold on, Josh.
Sorry, Alan. I'm sorry, man.
All good. I did find another stat quickly, though. It's not as cool as talking about playing the number 1 team in the country. But I did just see this, though, that in home games this year, the UCF is putting up 8 more points per game than they are in road games, 73.7 versus 65.7. So we are playing Houston at home. So hopefully that will obviously help us out. And we are also, some other interesting stats I found here. We are down to 238th in college basketball, all of college basketball, for 3-pointers per game, and 314th for 3-point shooting percentage. So that, I think, tells a big story.
Great.
We shouldn't probably shouldn't be chucking up threes.
Yeah,
probably not.
Chucking is the right word because we're not.
It is.
All right. Thank you, Alan.
The arm is cutting way off on this.
So, Alan, since you actually did the research on it, and I bogarted your stat, I mean, is it softball and baseball the only time that we've ever hosted a number 1 team in the country?
That's all I could find. Yeah, was softball and baseball. And then the only number 1s I think we have ourselves are obviously cheerleading and then soccer this past year, when we've been number 1 in the country in a sport.
Yeah, for all of a week. All right. So we are mentioning that because
not cheerleaders.
That's like a cow's move to be number 1 for like a week and then just fall off.
Was it only a week? I thought it was a little. Wasn't it like
maybe 2? But it was.
I think it was a week because we beat West Virginia and
right.
Then we lost like the next game. I
honestly lost immediately.
But the Cows were only number 2. They weren't number 1, so ours is a little bit better.
Cows will always
be Cows are number 2. Alan, you are correct.
Always the 1.
Yeah, they will always be number 2. Okay. Josh, I think it's your turn in the driver's seat. So what is Josh's sometimes funny fact of the week?
This is a pretty easy one, I think, but we'll see. So Houston basketball has only lost 3 games this entire season. How many losses were on the road?
1.
2.
All 3. All 3.
Well, one of you has to get it right, and that winner is Ben. Yes. Houston has not lost at home, and they've only lost by a total of less than 20 points in 3 games. And honestly, there were 2 tight games, and Kansas got over on them a little bit on the road. So you're saying we have a shot? I don't know. But they do lose.
They almost lost to Oklahoma. They had to. It took a last-second 3-pointer to win that game.
Was it like 0.4 seconds? I think Snead is the guard's name. It's one of their 2 guards that are just really good. So yeah, and it's we'll see. We'll see.
Yeah, it's certainly interesting. I remember even back in the American days with Houston when we beat them. They had that very impressive home winning streak going back then. They are tough to beat at home, and we played them really tough. And I said at the time, and I may have to eat those words, but I don't think I will. I'm still predicting that we win against Houston at home. All right, Josh, give us the skinny on UCF Sports.
The skinny, well, there's been a lot of UCF sports going on. We're getting deeper into the spring sports. We had UCF women's hoops lost to Kansas and a nail biter to Houston. Both, pretty unfortunate losses. We have 3 conference wins left.
Right, let's pause there. That Houston game was not an unfortunate loss. That was again, some folks not thinking through what they were doing. Two big mistakes. One, we got up. That I was watching that women's hoops game. We got up, hit a three, and then came back to the other end of the court. And the same person, Peterson, who has been stellar for us, by the way. So,
she's usually good.
Yeah, she just completely whiffed on defense on the other end of the court. For whatever reason, she started her opposing team member that she was guarding. For whatever reason, she thought she was going inside with a pass and just went towards the middle of the paint, left her person wide open. They shot the three. Then came back on the other side, and we just had a turnover and just a really not smart play. And they did what they did. And then we had the ball back with I think it was 18 seconds. We took it down the court and just dribbled and dribbled and dribbled and dribbled and dribbled. And there was 4 seconds left. And Peterson just desperation got into the paint and tried to throw something up that didn't even, barely hit the rim, the front part of the rim. It was they played so well in the fourth quarter because they were down 21 and came back in the third quarter and, were ahead in the fourth quarter. And it looked like they had them beat, and just mental mistakes towards the end. And it seems
So it's a fortunate loss. I mean, I understand where you're going with that.
Yeah.
But
Well, I'm just saying it's been a theme if you've watched women's basketball all year long, where they make late mistakes to lose games.
I watched one live earlier in the season too that should have been a win. So I'm with you. I've been there, both on watching it on TV and watching it live. So I'm with you.
Close, and we have some people coming in next year, but even that 18-second, they were reviewing it to make sure it was a 3-point shot, which it clearly was for Houston on the previous possession. And they basically had a full timeout. Satia Messer got the team over there. They went over everything, and they still did that with the last 18 seconds. It was just unfathomable to me that I don't know what they had drawn up and were attempting to do, but I can guarantee you Satia Messer did not draw that up.
I'm sure you're right. And
it was crazy.
Yeah. So that was the end of the regular season. Well, almost the end of the regular season. The final regular season game is at Cincinnati, and I believe they already have the 14th seed in the women's tournament, if I remember correctly. They do. They do. Yeah. So women's tennis lost to BYU and Texas Tech. Not continuing a winning way. They are going to be playing Baylor next. We also have the men's tennis team who are doing really well. They beat the Cows 4-0, and they are 9-1 overall. And I think their only loss was to a top 10 team. So that was pretty darn good. The UCF softball, they played a game against North Florida. That was then again postponed. But they did beat Princeton 10-2. And 11-3 in 2 games. They beat Kennesaw State 4-1. They did lose to 22-ranked South Carolina 4-2. They seem to be having these they can't get over the hump against ranked teams type of scenario, which
all close games, one-score games.
Close, but not getting over the hump, unfortunately. They play Stetson next, and they're at 11-7 overall. And I bet you those 7 losses are probably all the ranked teams at this point.
Yes, they are.
Close. Yeah.
They are. They it's 1-2 run games every single time where the offense just stalls. They have a pretty good offense going. They've been run ruling a lot of people. They ran rule Princeton, which was really good. Last year was a NCAA tournament team and did well in the tournament as well, but run ruled them twice. It's just, they're low scoring, 1 or 2 win. That clutch hitting that they had the prior year, that they're just not finding that clutch hitting. So hopefully that switch is flipped for them. But when they're on, they're on. So we've got a lot of good hitters. We just got to figure out how to do it in the clutch. All right. And that does it for this week, 204. Again, for those of you that checked out our social media, you saw a teaser commercial for some of the things that are coming down the pipeline, and we'll have some more of that going out here pretty soon. So keep your eyes peeled for that. With some big news that's going to be dropping in April, which is a great month because that was the month I was born, and that's the only reason. But that's it for this week. I thank all of you guys for joining us. Thank you, Nobra, for coming back and producing. It makes it a lot easier when I don't have to do that. And appreciate all the hard work you do outside of the podcast to help us be successful. Remember to like, follow, comment, give us the good with the bad and the ugly.
Yeah.
We appreciate all of it. Thank you, and go Knights.
Charge on.
All right.
That was
better.
not bad. That was a little bit better. There you go, Kevin. We're under 2 minutes and 10 seconds.